morning, Mr. Professor.
Good morning, Doctor.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Slow here again. Dr. Scholar.
Dr. Maureen. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Pleasure to see you today, and welcome.
Yay! The Campbells are
Yeah,
Yay!
I have a handout for you folks, Betty and Tony.
Did somebody do all the work for us? That's great. Here you go.
Well,
Thank you, thank you. Oh.
okay. There's 2 pages each. It's for you to write on. Okay, and then I'm going to hand out for everybody today. Real quick, we're going to wrap up this topic today, and I'm going to be here till probably lunchtime, maybe a little after, and then Dr. Truitt is going to finish up this afternoon. I have a wedding to officiate, so that's why I've got to go. Real quick, so far, are you comfortable with the speed, comfortable with presentation? Is it too much? Talk to me.
I think it was good because there was so much class participation.
Yes.
So where NDU really looks at participation as part of a grade, I think everybody got an A last night.
Absolutely, and I'll share with you folks. The last time I taught, I backed the truck up and dumped a bunch of information in your laps. This time we're going to take a little different approach and more conversation, much more. So if you have any kind of questions at all or comments, please pop the hand up or just interrupt and say, hey, what about this, this, and this? This is much more of a discussion class this time around. So please feel comfortable to throw any, oh, and I also want your thoughts. It may not have to be based on scripture, but what your thoughts are, because those thoughts that we had yesterday were really things that really fueled some good conversation. Okay? And then next class is going to be next month, third weekend of the month, the 19th and the 20th. Since my wife isn't here, she doesn't know that I'm telling everybody this, but that's also her birthday.
All right.
She turns the big 5-0. So I'm kind of toying with.
That she probably didn't even disclose.
Right.
Well, actually,
Something that no.
That was, it's on tape, it's on tape.
it's on tape. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, honey.
Yes. And for $50, I can erase it.
But for 100, you can keep it.
Yeah. So,
There we go.
That's funny.
Next class, to be honest with you, I don't know what we're going to do because Dr. McLeod is going to be here teaching
Wow.
in next month. And he will be here Friday night, Saturday, and then is he going to be...
He'll stay over Sunday for the pastor appreciation banquet.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay. So next month at this time, Dr. McLeod will be here. So make an effort to try to be here the whole time, kind of block up that week now, if you could, at all possible, and at least bless him with your presence. All right. Lord God, thank you that you're good. And thank you, Lord God, that we can look back at women you've ordained to do things in history. Women you've anointed, women, Lord God, that you have set in their hearts and minds in motion, and some that changed the course of history. So Father, today as we look at a few more, I ask your spirit of peace to come upon us, clarity, Lord God, anything that might be kind of hovering that's not school related or of you, Father, I ask that you just shoot it away. Lord God, that we would just have a good time today, Father, looking at some more women in your word. Thank you, Lord God, that you are good to us as well. In Jesus' name, amen. Today we finished up Deborah last night, yes. Any final thoughts on Deborah before we move forward? Okay. Next in line is gonna be Hannah. Anna. Who knows who Hannah was? Anybody? Hannah, the story of Hannah is in 1 Samuel chapter 1 and 2. You want to turn there. This is pretty much the only place she's mentioned in Scripture. At the very beginning of Samuel, and then she kind of fades into the background of Scripture. And we're finding that with most of the ladies that we've been looking at. They kind of show up on the scene, do their thing, and then they're really not mentioned much afterwards. The only one that's really mentioned so far that we've talked about more than their story itself is Rahab. She's mentioned more times in the New Testament than any of the other ladies that we have been looking at, which is interesting. So, Hannah. Let's talk about Hannah. Who was she? Anybody? I'm sorry?
A wife.
A wife, okay. Now, let's stop right there. She was one of two wives. She was one of two wives. And scholars believe that the fact that she was barren at the time, that her husband, who wanted children, went and took a second wife and bore children through her. Now, what's familiar about this and Sarah, who was barren, and Hagar, who bore children, was the wife that bore the children copped an attitude. She copped an attitude and started nitpicking everything that Hannah did. Why do you think she did that?
Jealousy.
What was she jealous of?
I don't know, I wish you know how women are, but, more eloquently, you know, she was the second wife, and what's my place, where's my role? I got the baby, but you've got my insecurity about a role,
Okay,
like who's number one?
but in that culture, a woman was blessed if she had children.
Okay, but we do know that Hannah was the favored wife.
Yes, that's the key. Hannah was the favored wife, whereas I believe her name was, Penna.
Penina.
Yeah.
I'll just call her Penny.
Penny, call her Penny for short. I like that. Okay, we're calling her Penny. Those students out there on the in cyber world. And yeah, Penny gave I'm sorry, Elkanah. I'm being distracted by it, but Elkanah children. And so, but she was Penny, we'll call her, was the favored wife. So,
No, Hannah was the favorite.
I'm sorry, you're right.
It's okay.
Penny was the fruitful wife of the children.
Yes,
But Hannah
Hannah was
was
the-
loved by Elkanah.
was the favored wife, exactly. So, ladies, that stress, turmoil in the home, how do you deal with that?
I don't think none of us have ever had to deal with our husband having two wives.
Well, true.
Yeah, we have.
Okay.
All right, that's the thing.
Talk to me. Okay,
I thought, are we Mormon?
I was just saying the same thing. So having dealt with an ex-wife, yes, I have, and it's difficult because you've got two parenting styles. You have to bring three parenting styles together now. You
Mhm.
have to bring this person wanting this and your husband wanting that, and you can't make anybody happy, and so it's difficult. And I can only imagine if you're living with them, what it would be like.
Right, exactly.
Well, I have a couple thoughts that I can't prove, but you know, when you're the wife that actually did what the wife is supposed to do, bear children, plus there was no medication to ease the pain or anything like that.
Right.
So she went through a lot, right? She went through the pain of childbirth. She did what she was supposed to do. And there's two thoughts I have. One, I think jealousy could have been part of it because Hannah was still favored, even though she didn't have to go do all that work. She didn't have to bear the children. She didn't have to take care of the kid, whatever.
Right.
But yet she was still favored. So that could be one issue. The other issue could be that pride comes up in now that Penny did have children. Now she thinks she's better, so she starts nitpicking the weaker one. And that happens a lot. When power comes over somebody, they nitpick the weaker ones because they think they've got it all together. And that could have happened. There's a couple angles.
Yeah, exactly. And those are
Yeah.
probably, yes.
I'd just like to point out the fact that Elkanah married both of these women. It is his job. It's his responsibility to take care of them equally. If you marry both women, then it's his job to love them, to care for them, to make them feel special and cared for equally. So it says right here, when it was time to go and give sacrifice to the priest, that Elkanah would give the children of Penny and Penny their portion to go sacrifice, but he, even though Hannah didn't have children, he gave her a double portion. So he showed favoritism to Hannah over Penny. So in some respects, he created a lot of the feelings that Penny had inside of her because of his favoritism towards
Yes.
Hannah.
And where else do we find that in Scripture?
Huh?
Where else do we find that same scenario in Scripture? Sarah.
And well, with Sarah,
and
Yes, and also 2 generations later with Leah
oh yeah,
and
well, and then Solomon did the same thing. Or
well, he
not
had a
Solomon,
1,000
David,
wives.
David did the same thing. I mean, there were men that.
Yes, David's. It's not documented as much, and we'll go over that because we're gonna actually kind of touch it a little bit.
Well, for me, the lack of document would show. We know he had multiple wives, but we only hear about one.
Well, that's the thing, and kind of jumping ahead a little bit. I mean, David, his first wife was the daughter of Saul, and then he fell in love with Abigail when Abigail's husband had a stroke. She was a strong, assertive woman, and David just dug that because he was himself one of those go-getter kind of guys. So he's like, cool, 2 peas in a pod. And then he had other wives along the line. Now, not near as many as his son.
And we have Solomon.
Solomon.
but not to change the subject, but then when did Bathsheba come in?
Bathsheba, we're going to talk about her.
Okay,
Bathsheba comes in after Abigail
okay.
and after, obviously the first wife, Micah, and then Abigail, and I think Bathsheba was the third,
The third.
I believe. But then David also had some concubines too.
Right.
So can I veer off for a quick second?
Please
and
do,
ask?
please.
Solomon had 1,000 wives, all these other men had all these other wives and concubines. I'm not trying to be funny, I'm seriously asking, is this because men were more virile and stronger? Closer to the Lord, no erectile dysfunction problems or whatever.
know
They
of.
had energy. I don't know quite how to explain it. They had energy to take care of all these wives and stuff.
Well, okay. What would happen?
There's only 365 days in a year, and they had,
But it was more of a status thing. It was like an income.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's
Yeah,
like
see,
cows in Africa.
Yeah, because what they would do is they would marry the woman, they would consummate the marriage or have a concubine, and then that woman was set aside in the home with all the others, much like you guys experienced when you were in Tanzania. And so they had their own little dwelling, their own little place. And then if the husband said, I want, he would call up, Oh, today I want candy. Tomorrow I want brandy. And then, Bambi. And whoever, however she want, whichever one he would want, it was his beck and call. And so there was someone else basically taking care of his wives.
Yeah.
Because he was king.
So are you saying there was another man taking care of the concubines?
No, well, usually there was a eunuch. There was a eunuch that took care of the concubines. The husband was smart enough not to have a full-blooded American male that can do everything hanging out with his wives.
I'm sorry, I don't know what a eunuch is.
And it was,
oh,
A eunuch is
doesn't
like,
mean
yeah, they were
it brought status to the father of the woman too. To
oh,
have the king marry one of your daughters or one of your children, it brought status
yes.
to the father of that child. And I mean, even in Africa,
Yeah.
it's something that doesn't fly out of my brain, but it brings status to that person.
Yes, it does. So yeah, now Solomon, he basically, it's interesting when you read Proverbs and you read Ecclesiastes. I mean, Proverbs is great wisdom literature, it's like Wisdom 101. Ecclesiastes is 201. Because at the end of his life, he realizes vanity, vanity, all is vanity.
And then,
I'm sorry?
then you read Song of Solomon.
Well, Song of Solomon was his first wife. Traditional. He's chasing around that Egyptian babe, and that's the love thing that he has for her. And so now if you repeated that 1,000 times, well, I don't know. I don't know if he did that. So, but yeah, but he comes at the end of Ecclesiastes, he's like, you know what, I did all these things, did all this stuff. Wisdom is a burden for him. He was the wisest man that ever lived, but yet it was a burden on him because he analyzed everything. So anyway, we're kind of getting off. You were going to say something?
I was gonna say, I don't have the note sheets.
Oh, I apologize.
for
I'd
today.
just like to make a comment about that. Imagine being a man who asks only for the wisdom and then being dumb enough to marry that man.
Well, that's the thing.
I'm sorry, I just have to say
when
it.
Solomon,
You ask to be a super wisdomous person and to have the wisdom and the understanding, and now you have all these wives and you have to have, and you were granted that.
well, what was the reason for his request?
Well, the request was for his people,
Exactly. So
but if he was
so he could
given it-
effectively rule.
God didn't say, I'm going to give you wisdom for your people, but not your wives. He gave him wisdom, here it
Well,
is.
that's the thing.
and
for
he still
for the
has
first
it all
for
these
the
years later.
yeah for the first segment of Solomon's rule,
Yeah,
he followed God.
yeah.
He copied his dad in a little in a number of things. But one of the things he copied his dad in was, he was a man after God's heart. And we see that in
Yeah.
Solomon at the very beginning of his rule. Then when he had influence from, he got a big head. The Queen of Sheba showed up and was just wowed by everything that he was doing and all of his riches and fortune and fame. And then he saw his country grow. Because at the time of Solomon, the nation of Israel was they were like the United States of today. Well, the United States of the 1950s. The big dog. That was the nation of Israel. And they had world trade going. They had the greatest economy, the greatest military. They had it all together. And then Solomon decided, hey, this is cool. Yes.
Oh no, go finish your thought.
He's like, this is cool. And so then it kind of got to his head, and then he started following. I think he got swayed by women and followed their beliefs. And I'm not saying it's the woman's fault. I'm just saying.
And that's exactly why God told the Israelites not to let them marry, not to marry others because he didn't want the women to sway
Right.
their beliefs. I was going to simply ask real quick about how old were men when they started taking wives? Is there any indication?
The men were usually a little older. They were still younger than they are today. Like the girls, it was like age 12 was when they were able to start being considered a bride.
Puberty.
I'm sorry?
Puberty.
Pretty much.
Soon as the women hit
Yeah. Whereas
Some men, you know, like
the guys,
considered a woman.
they were older,
like
a little bit,
14, 15?
maybe a little bit older,
Oh.
because tradition would be you and Vic are married. You and Vic have a son. He wants a wife, so you and Vic would then obtain a house for him and his bride. Your son would then go find the bride. Then they would come back and they would live in that house that you have for them for a year. No work, nothing. All they would do would be
Right.
honeymoon
Right.
the whole time for a year. And then after a year, then they start supporting themselves. And you are close by to help along the way.
Our kids are supposed to be gone after a year? What happened?
And then that's how the community start growing together and families would, you know, and then family grow, that kind of thing. But that's
So it wasn't just priests, or I mean, like important people that got that year? It was.
no, that's what the Moses said in the law.
Oh.
You know, and then after the year, if she's expecting, then he was removed from military service, that kind of thing. So anyway,
Thank
for a while until the son was,
you.
yeah, and then he could go and be a man. So anyway, back to Hannah. I apologize. I love the bunny rabbit trails. So she was picked on by Penny quite a bit. So finally, Hannah had enough, I think. She went before the Lord and says, I want a son. I want a son. And she makes it, I don't want to say she makes a deal with God, because we don't make deals with God. You know, God doesn't lower himself to, okay, I agree to that. No, God allows it. We can request it. So, but I wouldn't say she made a deal with God. She just came with this request, this heartfelt request of God, I want a son. And if I give you a son, or if I have a son, I will give him back to your service. And he will be a Nazirite. Who knows what a Nazirite is?
Very holy, live in the temple, leave your hair long, follow after the priests.
Pretty much, a Nazirite would take a vow of purity of some, and within that vow is their time frame. So if I were to say, okay, God, I'm going to take a vow, a Nazirite vow for 2 months. So for 2 months, I can't have anything associated with grapes, wine, vinegar, grape products,
Almost like a Lent type of
thing. Can't get my hair cut, and there's other big stipulations that in Numbers, I believe it's Numbers chapter 21, I think is where that's all laid out. And so she said, my son is going to be a Nazirite, and he will serve you, and I'll give him back to you. And so, lo and behold, she goes up to the temple to do her offering, and what happens?
The priest thinks she's drunk.
Yes. Why do you think he thought that?
Because God shut her voice and she was only praying with her heart, and so he saw her mouth move, but he didn't hear any words, so he thought she's acting drunk, and even asked her, how long have you been drinking?
Yeah. She's in pain.
Right.
And she's at the altar, and she's pouring out her heart, her feelings, her everything in her. She's laid out before the Lord without a voice, but yet her mouth was moving, her body, her whole being is being used minus the voice, and he thinks, what's wrong with this lady? So then when he finds out she's not drunk, the
Okay.
reality of what's happening, he
Yes.
hit Samuel.
Now, how would you feel if?
So I thought you were drunk.
Yeah, exactly. Ladies, you're before. Okay, when
Yeah.
on Sunday morning, Pastor Kevin's up here saying, if you want to come worship the Lord, my left, your right, on your own, if you want prayer type thing. So somebody walks up and just starts doing that kind of thing. How would you feel? Says, are you drunk? What's up with that?
Well, he was raised in a Pentecostal church, so I'm sure he wouldn't make a notice.
That's funny though, because I was raised Catholic, and so when I first came to CLC and saw some of this stuff, I was like, what going on?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't automatically assume people were drunk. Of course, I thought they were having a nervous breakdown.
Right.
Having a breakdown. Right. So, but if you're not used to it, you just think you're having a seizure or a stroke or something. Something ain't right.
But
Not
how
the
would
ways
you
of God.
feel? How would you feel? Like Chrissy said, you're before God, pouring your soul out, and somebody accuses you of being drunk.
It actually has happened. Not here, obviously. I get super pissed.
Okay.
Throat punch time.
Well, I think I would be more hurt that somebody would assume that of me
Okay.
without knowing, you know?
Now, with Hannah's background, the nitpicking she got all day long from Penny, we're calling her,
Yeah.
and the fact she was barren, she was desperate for a child, and then the priest accuses her of being drunk.
She's just, I mean, you feel defeated and you feel like exhausted because you know yourself, you know your heart, you know God knows your heart, but nobody's seeing what's really going on.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Been there, done
Yeah,
that.
not, I said Samuel, it's Eli, not Samuel, but
Yes.
Eli comes to her and says that. But you know what? There's little pieces of scripture that we've observed prior that speaks of the character of a person. And if a woman is at the altar pouring herself out like that, and somebody comes up and asks if she's drunk or tells her to put away, he told her to put away her wine, put
Yeah.
away your drink. And a lot of women would explosively say, I'm not drunk.
Yeah.
And she
Yes.
calmly explains, I haven't been drinking. I've just been in anguish and pouring myself out before the Lord. So she doesn't bite back at him. She simply explains, and then he tells her to go in peace, and that God will grant her request. So, I mean, it's
What a beautiful
it's
example.
It
of-
is.
Yeah,
of yet another woman who
self-control.
character.
And who had a major opportunity just to go nuts and go, because I mean she was at her wit's end, as Pastor Kevin preached on a number of months ago. That last straw, that poor last straw was sitting right there. Poor straw.
Yeah, poor Eli.
Poor Eli. He was
Had
gonna.
an earful.
She was gonna come down on him like a Georgia
It
rainstorm.
says he was sitting on the stool. I might have knocked him off.
She had every right to. You know what I'm saying? She had every right to be all over him like a fat rat on cheese.
Yeah.
And
But again, it's a wonderful example of how we women in our emotional drainage state should act. And, we don't, but we can get there.
right. So, what happens? She goes home.
So, and she is with her husband.
Yes, and they produce Samuel.
Yes.
So, what's her response?
What's my response?
I'm sorry?
She tells,
Chapter 2. Let's go to chapter 2 of 1 Samuel.
She prays.
She
Prayer.
says, then Hannah prayed. Now, I don't know how much time has passed between the end of chapter 1 and the beginning of chapter 2. Because the end of chapter 1, he says, when they had slaughtered the bull, they brought the boy to Eli, and the Lord said, as surely as you live, my Lord, I am the woman who stood here before praying. I prayed for this child. And the Lord has granted me what I asked of him, so now I give him to the Lord for his whole life, and he'll be given over to the Lord. And he worshiped the Lord there. And then she prayed. So we don't know if it was there at that instant, or if it was later on in life. But then Hannah prayed and said, my heart rejoices in the Lord. In the Lord my horn is lifted high. My mouth boasts over my deliverance, for I delight in your deliverance. My mouth boasts over my enemies, for I delight in your deliverance. There is no one holy like the Lord. There is no one beside you. There is no rock like our God. And she goes on all the way through chapter 11, verse 11. So what happens to Hannah? I imagine after boy was weaned, that's what, 3 years old? 3 or 4 or so. She brings this little curly haired boy. I have some good friends here in town, and that's what they did with their sons. Whenever they were born, the mom never cut the hair. So I thought they looked like girls from behind. Did they have this long curly hair? And then when they finally got the haircut, it was like long, but it was kind of cool. And they were all long curly hair. So she's bringing this curly haired little boy up to the temple. So, moms in the room, how would you feel?
It would be heartbreaking, but in the same sense, she was being the woman of God and keeping her promise. God blessed her with a son, and she promised that she would give him back to the Lord to be raised as a Nazareth. And so, as hard as it was, she had to keep her promise. And she probably knew in her wisdom that if she didn't keep her promise, something might happen to her.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up. Because if you look throughout the history of Israel, and especially in Kings, in 1st and 2nd Kings, it talks about this king did this and he did wicked in the eyes of the Lord. This person did this and they did wicked in the eyes of the Lord. This person did good in their eyes of the Lord, and his mother's name was. You always find mom related to the guys that do good in the chronological history of the kings in both 1st and 2nd Kings and Chronicles. This king did good in the eyes of the Lord, and his mother's name was da-da-da-da. Okay? Samuel obviously did well in the eyes of the Lord because, and I honestly believe it was that early influence that's ingrained in a child. I mean, you, as a doctor of psychology,
Yep,
how much do children absorb as they're growing
all
up?
of it. All of it.
So by the time Samuel was 3, what do you think he'd absorb from his mother?
By the time a child is 3 years old, they have learned a lot of characteristics. They have learned, or they should have learned, compassion and empathy and sorrow, love.
They learn what's modeled or shown in the home.
Right.
Okay.
And they also, children can detect a liar or
Yes.
someone who's not honest a mile away.
Yes.
Right. And so, yeah, go ahead.
I think too that as Hannah, because he was such a miraculous blessing, that Samuel probably knew that. She was probably preparing him for that. God gave me. As a mom, you tell your kids those stories over and over, even when they're 2 and 3. You were such a blessing. God gave you to me like this, and this is what happened. So there was probably a lot of pride, not bad pride, the good stuff.
Yes.
About where her son was going, and she was this gift straight from God that Eli told her was coming. And when she went to go give him to Eli, she was just like, Lord, this is the one. This is the one. And so she was very excited. I'm sure it was beyond heartbreaking too, but she knew where he was. And now her son, that Penny was all wearing, now she had that confidence that God gave her a son.
Yes.
He is there serving God. So
She
you
prepared
can
him well.
just kind of stuff it because it doesn't matter what you say or how many kids you have. My boy's over there.
Exactly.
And he is straight from God. So I think that there would be a lot of strength found through that process.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
And we see as Samuel grows up and he's the last judge in the book of Judges and the first priest or prophet. Priest. Yeah, he's the first priest. Moving forward. So he was that transitional guy. So he was a man of integrity. He was a man of high quality.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's interesting is he's raised from the time he's 3 or 4 in the same house as Eli's boys. But Eli's boys were wicked. So the influence that Hannah had on her little son is
I think.
phenomenal,
I
yes.
think you have only to read through her prayer, which almost encompasses the entire second chapter.
Yes, exactly.
To see what kind of character and person Hannah was. 'Cause that's, I mean, that prayer is used and reused and portions taken out of it everywhere, all the time. There's worldly sayings that were drawn out of Hannah's prayer in this. I mean, it's an amazing prayer that she stopped and prayed, you know.
Yes.
after.
And
So-
also, since they go every year, it wouldn't necessarily mean she would never see him again.
Exactly, right.
You know, so when
Just
they
gonna ask
went,
that,
she was still able to pour into his life
yeah. Right.
and continue to tell him those stories.
Exactly, and hang out with him, yeah, and those
She gave
are,
him to the temple
By the way,
that she
slight-
went to every year.
Yeah,
slight
exactly.
correction, prophet, not priest. Samuel was the first prophet.
Well, and she parented in a different way than Eli. So
Yes.
she was originally, they were supposed to go up that year, and she refused to go. So she held on to her son for 3 years and took her time with him,
Mhm.
knowing the whole time, I'm gonna do what's right and give him up to the Lord, I'm gonna do the hard thing. Eli, being a priest, would have been somebody who's high up in the echelons of the Jewish culture. And his children were probably raised to be priests and spoiled.
Yes,
She raised her son to be given away, to give his life away.
excellent.
So it's a completely different
Just
way
like
of raising your son.
Well, yeah, and we know that Eli died more than likely from diabetes. He had issues with his feet and he was overweight. And then also either him, well, actually he fell over and broke his neck, I think, when he fell, but he was diabetic, I believe. So he was big. And his sons were probably the same way. They were eating the fat that was brought to the temple. And it was all about them, like you had said. So that was an excellent point. So they were guys, it's like entitlement. They were like, you know, what people call the millennials today. Bunch of entitlement people. I'm just saying that's what people say. I'm not labeling them because I have millennial children. So, Hannah moving forward. What do we find from Hannah after?
We don't hear much about Hannah
We don't.
after this.
She has more kids.
She has more kids,
Her mom.
exactly. In chapter 2, verse 5, the Lord says, she who was barren has borne
Yes.
7 children. Okay? But she who had many sons, Penny, pines away.
Because she's wanting the same affection from her husband that Hannah gets. No matter how many boys or kids that she gives her husband, he still fawns over Hannah. And she wants that attention. And that's why I think that's why she was so envious and so hurt that no matter what she did, here she's a great producer of children and she's given her husband everything, you know, status, da-da-da, of all these kids, but he still doesn't give her the extra portion or give her the love, adoring, and I'm, you know, I can just picture him walking by and just, you know, maybe stroking Hannah's hair in front of her, and she's just like, why can't I get that?
Right, that's a good point. Really good. I think the word pines away kind of, you know, describes the situation. What goes around comes around,
Yeah.
with interest.
Yes, the time Hannah got pregnant. Poor Penny was like,
How do I get myself? That's the thing, they're stuck.
Yeah.
I mean, she's stuck.
yeah.
How she get out of this mess that she thinks is a mess? She can't. She's got a guy that's providing for her every day and all her kids. What's she gonna do?
But you know, there's another really good lesson here, and it's for women, especially. We're supposed to hold each other up.
Yes.
And if Penny would have not teased and you know, bugged Hannah, maybe Hannah would have taken pity on her, and she would have learned to be graceful with her her speech and her prayers and, you know, I mean, she could have learned a lot from Hannah, but instead she chose to make her an enemy.
Right, she did.
Yeah.
Now, Hannah's response to her, though, we never see Hannah, you know,
We never hear it.
Yeah.
exactly, back at you type thing, or got you there, you know, type thing. Yes.
I like how Hannah's story is an example of our more than enough God, because He not only gave her the promised son, He not only gave her a son, but He gave her 6 months of
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, He doesn't just give us our requests, He gives us more and more. And
That'll preach.
our more than enough God.
Okay, anything else on Hannah before we move on? Okay, let's go to 8 and 9 together. Naomi and Ruth. Book of Ruth. Let's all turn to the book of Ruth. Yes. The book small little book tucked between Judges and Samuel, 1 Samuel. Naomi and Ruth. What was their relationship?
Daughter-in-law,
I'm sorry?
daughter-in-law.
Mother-in-law, daughter-in-law. What had happened was apparently Ruth had married Naomi's son. And they were not Hebrews. They were not Jewish individuals. They were from somewhere else. And it's interesting, and we talked about this last night, that there's certain individuals throughout Scripture that aren't of the chosen race that the line of Jesus goes through. Ruth is one of them. Rahab is another, who wasn't a Jew, who wasn't an Israelite. So we have Ruth and Naomi, and they both lose their husbands.
But Oprah lost her husband too, right?
I'm sorry?
The other daughter-in-law.
Yes, there were two. Actually, there were two sisters, or there was two daughters-in-law, and then the mother-in-law. And the one decided to go back to her home country,
Right.
and then Ruth decided to stay with her mother-in-law, Naomi. And what's cool, years ago, there's a song out there called "The Song of Ruth," and sometimes it's pulled out of context. It's a love song per se. Where you go, I will go. Where you lot, I will lot. Your people, your God, my God, type thing. With that, Ruth was showing her dedication to Naomi. So, how do you think Naomi is feeling at this right now, just specifically Naomi? Okay, she's a widow, and she has two daughters-in-law that are also widows. How's Naomi feeling right now?
Well, she wasn't even in Israel
Right,
anymore.
exactly.
Her husband had taken her and her family and put
Right.
them in this other place, so she wasn't at home,
Yes.
and her only source of existing, her husband and her sons are gone,
Mm-hmm.
so she's got nothing, and less than that. So she's just fed up and given up and gonna go back to Israel and hope somebody will do something. So it's just a very low place.
Well, she feels like because her sons died too, I think that, oh my gosh, I've lost my husbands, I've lost both my sons. This one daughter-in-law is going back to her family. And she even gave Ruth the option,
Right.
are you going to go back to your family? And Ruth just adoringly, no, I'm going to stay with you. That would just bless my heart.
What does that say about Ruth?
oh, her character was outstanding.
Exactly.
I think it says something about, a lot about Naomi too.
Yes.
In order for Ruth
Right, to stay with
to
her.
stay with her, because she could, I mean, Orpah went with him to begin with too.
Right.
But Orpah decided to turn back, but Ruth could have, and been totally fine, she would have found another husband.
Yeah.
But she wanted to care for her
But she wanted to be
mother-in-law.
with Naomi.
And she learned from her mother-in-law, you know, she learned things, and I'm just kind of taking this out of context. She wanted to be with her, so therefore you know she was a beautiful, charismatic woman who Ruth wanted to be like.
I've always found it impressive because she had to have been such an amazing example of a Christian before there was a Christian.
Yeah,
Because
that's, yeah.
basically, this, woman from another land was willing to give up everything for this God that Naomi had, because there had to be something about Naomi and her faith in God and the way she behaved that made Ruth want to be part of that too.
She was
Correct.
a golden
God as
example.
And the fact it's an in-law type
Yeah.
relationship. It's
Yeah.
not blood.
Yeah,
It's, and technically, by all legal rights,
yeah.
Ruth can go and be free. But she still considered Naomi
Yeah.
the mother-in-law.
Right.
You know, you have a great relationship with your mother-in-law, obviously. You know, but the rest of us in the room, the acronym I have for my mother-in-law is FML. Favorite mother, FMIL, favorite mother-in-law. And she comes over about every morning to hang out with Jennifer while Jennifer puts on her makeup, I haven't seen her for a couple weeks because she's been on a cruise, so she's due home. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing her again. She lives across the street from us, but still. So I say, hey, good morning, favorite mother-in-law. She goes, oh, hello, type thing. And we have that relationship. And it's kind of it's a cool relationship. But you don't find if you have it, it's unique.
Mm-hmm.
Your reaction, mother-in-law's like,
My first mother-in-law was not easy to get along with. She did tell me that I married her most sensitive boy, my brother's dad. But when he died, she just, she took us to the beach one time and there was this raffle. And you pay $1 and then you can win a gun, right? And she's like, oh, I have 3 sons. I said, well, you also have a daughter-in-law that likes to hunt. And she goes, well, blood's thicker than water, honey. And she didn't put my name in the raffle. Vic's mom, sorry, is a Christian, is sweet, has her ornery ways, but they're kind of funny,
kind of like him.
Yeah, and I used to think he got a lot of characteristics from his dad. I never met his dad, but he's got a lot of characteristics of his mom, and she has her wonderful, sensitive ways. And in fact, we're going to see her in Colorado, first part of October. And this is how God works. She's never paid for anything, but now that she's living with her other son and she has a little money, she paid for our tickets to go back. And that tells me a lot that, she's changing. And lift your head up, I'm talking about your moment.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, I think that getting back to Ruth and Naomi, it's the qualities that she saw in her mother-in-law. Like Jean said, that, she was a Christian before there were Christians, and she wanted that. She saw them